All right, guys. Good evening. Ron and I are here to hang out with you tonight. Rusty was gonna be here, but in typical Rusty fashion, he is at Epcot currently
Ouch.
and out enjoying the park. Let me see if I can get my mouse to actually work here, and I will bring
We
us
should be
on camera. Here we go. So,
we
uh,
should blow. Oh, what a great photo!
so we have to prove the fact that Rusty does actually exist.
And that the
So,
three of us have shared the same space together.
correct.
That's
We actually had
awesome.
the opportunity to hang out a couple of weeks ago, and this is our. This is our first broadcast in a couple of weeks because we have been traveling and doing stuff, and we are very
Right.
dedicated to taking this into the fall and doing this. But we had the greatest time. We got to ride Rise of the Resistance. Great shot of Rusty's butt right there. And we got to get in there and enjoy the ride, enjoy experiencing some things
Nice.
together. And really had a great time. We got into Oga's Cantina. We hung out for some fun and photos and really just truly enjoyed ourselves. And it was really nice, at least for Tegan and I, to get down into the space where you guys are all the time and spend some time with you guys, especially together, because we had never done it, the three of us together. So you meeting Rusty for the first time and having the opportunity to get you guys together for me was really cool. And just having the opportunity to hang out and share some good laughs and get some photos and really just have some fun.
Great photos.
The little beat mixing photo on the bald heads. There we go. So we really had a great time, and it was really great, obviously, as always, to get to spend some time with you and see you as well. And we were just really, really thankful the way everything played out for us.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah, it was a great time, and we have so much to talk about. The news is happening so fast in theme parks
Yes.
right now.
Yes.
There's just so much going on. The incorrectly leaked information that Nemo was closing, and the reality is the Nemo show is going to be continuing. It is going to be a revamped show. The current cast, from what I understand, has been told they are not going to be returning as constituted. So I don't know if the actors or actresses will be back in roles or how they're going to revamp things. That all remains to be seen. But I was glad to see that the cancellation of the show was misreported.
I think just to be fair though, I think first of all, whoever had shared that information should not have,
Oh,
because
100%.
I think the show is the show is going to be no more as it has been known and loved, and
Correct.
it remains to be seen what a new interpretation of that show is going to be. But it with the fact that cast won't be brought back, I don't I don't foresee it being called Finding Nemo the musical. It may be Finding Nemo the experience,
Right.
or something like that. But cutting that kind of talent, and the talent and their ability to bring the puppets to life, that that's all first world stuff that you're not going to be able to replace.
Correct. And I think one of the big things that I've seen debated in a lot of the forums this week, and I myself have chimed in on some of the conversations, is that a lot of these moves, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, were planned prior to the pandemic. Don't even have anything to do with COVID. Some of these things, there were being there was entertainment cuts going on prior to the pandemic occurring. There were changes to the entertainment structure. There were That's one of the things about Disney that, while a harsh reality, Walt wanted things to continue to evolve and change as time progressed. And a lot of Walt Disney purists get really upset by change because they feel like they're losing a part of their childhood memories, or whatever it may be, a great show, a ride, a shop, a restaurant, an experience. These are all things that people get attached to emotionally
Right.
by frequenting trips or whatever. And I mean, people forget prior to Nemo, that was Tarzan. There were shows in place there that have had to stop, and then a new show comes along and takes over for it. While I understand some of the frustration and concerns, the clickbait media now, and the Disney podcasters that fight so hard for the breaking news story. They want to be the first to report something, and they have friends that are cast members. They are hearing accurate information sometimes, in the sense that they're getting info from a reliable source, but they're not necessarily getting the whole story. And this is what happened with this particular instance being reported. And the unfortunate part, and I'm friends with quite a few cast members. I know you're friends with quite a few cast members. The unfortunate part in a lot of these clickbait or, Walt Disney World News breaking headlines that they try to get is the fact that this is often, unfortunately, how cast members get informed, because they haven't even had the chance to hear it direct from the company yet. And
I can tell you just real quick, when it comes to equity stages, you're generally, it's more than a gentleman's handshake. Normally, if a stage is transitioning, if it's closing, if it's going to become something else, and the actors' roles are at stake, normally they're notified, and that notification process typically looks like it's about an 8 to 12 week period, so that they can start the process of looking for opportunities elsewhere within the company or transitioning to another line of business. So that's the thing that's a little difficult. You're right. Things are always going to change. And I think when you look at shows like Spirit of Aloha, when you look at shows like Hoop-Dee-Doo, Finding Nemo, the commercial aspect of it is, how does that tie into branding and merchandising? And I know that there are people looking at that, trying to figure that out. But I believe that the way this news was released, it was unfortunate.
yeah, and I mean, I think also what's kind of happening collectively, and I've spoken to a few friends in Orlando, both in media, in cast, in as fans, that I think this particular year and in this particular circumstance is a perfect storm, in a sense that there is so much going on all at once, and they're working so fast to get everything back up to speed, and so many changes that normal policies that may have normally been in place for things like equity in a show or something like that, are getting overlooked, and it may not even be intentional. Like there's just so much going on, that it's overwhelming.
Well,
Also,
yeah, that is true. But the other thing is, Disney really functions very well despite being, and this is the Orlando resort specifically, because I know it better than any other.
right.
It's very siloed. You have these lines of business that are really good at taking care of themselves, and there will be overlap. There'll be that kind of Venn diagram bleed over to other organizations that either support or they support. So, the people that were aware of this, I promise you, the first conversation that was had was, how do we notify the cast members? And the fact that there wasn't any follow through with that, that's the thing for me that really bothers me. And of course, it doesn't look good for the current CEO of the company, that if there's these belt tightening measures, the media again jumps on the bandwagon and says, hey, look, over here they're cutting things, but over here Bob Chapek just spent whatever he spent, $12.5 million, I think, on a new home.
Right.
So this, it doesn't play well. It just doesn't play well.
No, and that's obviously, that's a whole nother conversation about the balance of public perception with things is a tough line to walk with a company like Disney, because it is so big, like an Amazon or anything else. It's easy for people to disassociate concern for the average consumer and feel as though they're being, forgotten or overlooked. I assure you that your average consumer is not being forgotten or overlooked. They're just taking the numbers of what the average consumer is going to spend and saying, okay, well, if we need to, lower pricing or raise pricing or whatever they need to do, to enhance the experience. If everybody's complaining about crowded parks, they can raise pricing, and they're going to.
They're not complaining. They're not complaining this month.
No, I know they're not. We were there. I mean, that was heaven. But again, you want to talk a perfect storm. Okay, so this was something that was brought to my attention by a lot of people when we were down there. And I had a lot of friends calling, being like, oh my gosh, why is it so quiet? Everybody's so scared to go there. And I said, no, it's not even that. If 5 or 10% of the people are delaying because of COVID, or canceling because of COVID, it's a small percentage, but there are people that are canceling without a doubt. But it might be 5 or 10% of what was booked. The biggest issue with the last 2 weeks. So, and this, September's a huge month for international travel, because as soon as all the American kids are back in school, there are still school schedules that are different in other countries. People come back, they travel there. I had some people tell me that they were about 60% down in attendance because of the banned international travel alone. So if you take 60% of the people that are normally there and they're suddenly not there, what's normally a slow time becomes a dream for you if you're in there for taking advantage of the parks. Then add in the fact that with the perfect storm of October 1st, the 50th anniversary, people that might have considered going in September are going to wait. And they're going to try to go in a slower time over the next 18 months so they can enjoy the benefits and perks and additions of the 50th anniversary. So that's another whole aspect. And then when you take into consideration all the other things, it's hot. Kids are back in school. The normal, like the first 2 weeks of September are normally slow, just not as slow as it was this past couple of weeks. I mean, we were at I told you, we did Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. After we saw you, we spent 4 days at Universal. Our last day at Universal, the Velocicoaster, the brand new coaster, the longest wait of the day was 15 minutes.
Yep.
And 15 minutes in theme park means walk on, because you're pretty much walking the entire queue for 10 minutes.
That's right.
And then you're walking onto the ride at the end. The only reason you would have to wait additionally longer is there were tons of people trying to wait for the front car. So you might have to wait an extra 7 trains. We discovered we like riding the back, so we just kept requesting the back and going. But Tegan did, in one day, the park was open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And in one day, we did 10 rides on the Velocicoaster, 6 rides on Hagrid's, Forbidden Journey, Hulk, Spider-Man, Doom, Bluto's Barge, Jurassic River Adventure.
Isn't that fascinating, though?
We met Blue, and we spent an hour in Hogsmeade with a cast member who bought us and our new friends we had met that day, frozen butterbeer.
Nice.
So we got to hang out.
Cast member or team member?
Or team member, sorry, team member. I get that wrong sometimes. Team member at Universal. Neil, amazing guy, and I did shout him out with a UO fist bump. He was a great dude, and I really appreciated what he showed us and taught us, which was incredible. Now, you had come up for the day. What was your take on that day?
From the perspective of crowds, it was not terrible. I've certainly seen the parks busier. I've seen the resorts busier. The timing worked out well for me because I took the Skyliner, and when I came over, it was delightful. There was nobody on the platforms. The guests outnumbered the cast members on the platforms and the loading docks. But I thought it was lovely. I think you have a more forgiving eye when it comes to observing cast members or team members and seeing how they interact. I'm of the give love and kindness to everybody, and you get that in return. Now, especially at the parks.
Good evening, Frank.
What's that?
I wanted to say good evening to Frank. Frank just popped on and he's joining us.
Frank, love you, man. The thing that really shocked me was I don't know why. I feel very strongly. I almost take it personally when I greet you and I acknowledge you, and I just get a blank stare or silence back. And that happened to me with several cast members, and I was surprised by it. But it was nice the day that I was there, the day we were wherever we went in the park. We didn't see any fist fights, so that was awesome. that seems.
We didn't have any ourselves, so that was good.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it could have gone that way, but thankfully we seemed to gel pretty well.
I mean, Rusty's a rough dude, but once we got some deodorant for him, we were good. No, I'm just kidding. He was nervous about that picture. He was thinking, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be that guy, but we made him that guy.
You know what? And it was a funny photo. And I think
he's a good sport.
The fact the photographer and people who were watching us started laughing made it okay.
Yeah, exactly. We had a good time. Doing the photo shoots was a lot of fun. We had our photographers laughing and enjoying ourselves. It's funny because, like you said, a couple of weeks ago when we had talked about the show and on the show about training and about going through traditions and how now traditions was so high volume and less personalized and gymnasium style, and so many new people are coming into Disney so fast that, based on your reaction of what you just said in the parks, to me, part of that comes out of the fact that they're rapid firing new staff through training right now, and it's maybe not as personal as it was, in order to try to get those staffing issues resolved prior to October 1st. And, part of that is because they haven't been able to do it with COVID. There's been restrictions. There's been things to slow things down. With the reintroduction of the college program at some levels, you've got huge groups of kids coming back all at once for that first initial push that really need the training done. I think there is a level of suffering that goes on in business when you kind of have to almost you sacrifice some quality to gain efficiency. And I have felt that way in the last 24 months at Disney, but I also think, and I've talked to cast members, that cast members are more challenged now than ever before to maintain their positivity, their professionalism, people are now more entitled and more quick to snap than ever before, because just like in a restaurant, and if you follow the news with stuff, in the cities where there are vaccine mandates, and again, this is not to get political, but in a city where there's a vaccine mandate, restaurants are now responsible to have someone greet you at the door and verify your vaccination status. Restaurants aren't equipped to, one, pay that person in a lot of places. They're small businesses. Now they're staffing someone else to do a job that shouldn't have to be done. But that's kind of happening at Disney too, with the fact that there are mask requirements. Suddenly, every cast member has to act in a manner of being a mask wearing enforcer. And I understand that's just part of the job, but there are so many people that are just intolerant, want to argue, want to try to say they're outside, because the one problem Disney has, or anywhere else right now with imposing COVID restrictions, is that the rules are never clear anywhere. You don't know what you're supposed, like, they can say you have to wear a mask indoors, in queues, and on transportation, but you can keep your mask off when you're outside. Now, if I'm standing in line for Slinky Dog and I'm outside, half the people are going to think it's okay to keep my mask off because they don't understand they're technically in a queue line.
Yep.
So they're going to argue with somebody. So there's this level of gray area that is causing problems for cast members. And honestly, cast members are overworked because they're short-staffed. They're overtired. They're putting in 60, 65 hours a week. These kids are toast. And you're expecting them to greet you and be like, "Hey, Mr. Jones, how's your day today? Mickey says hi, and here's your seat on the ride. Could you just put your mask on for me? Please cooperate with the rules. Don't take it off while you're on the ride." Like, they can't keep a smile on their face. It's very hard when you are given extra responsibility in that role. And I understand the frustration for cast members too, because guests are not as friendly as they could be. And I saw it a
Well,
couple times.
here's a point that was shared with me that and I've heard it more than once, and that is, people who are coming out of their shells, coming out of their homes, venturing out, wanting to make a trip to Disney. Some of these people are bothered because they feel the sticker shock of the fact that prices are either the same or have gone up on
Yeah.
gate, but they're getting less. And
Yep.
they rightfully feel that that's not fair, and they feel that Disney seems more focused on generating revenue to make up for time lost and revenue lost. And then, to a couple of other points you brought up, if the keys are being taught properly when people are going through traditions and coming through Disney University, that
Yep.
should never be an issue, because quality is nowhere near one of the keys, but efficiency is, but it's not the first key. And then the other point is, you're right. The signage needs to be more clear because it can be confusing, but a queue is a queue is a queue. I mean, and that's it. Any transportation, you should be wearing your masks. It's just, for me, it's pretty simple. If someone asks you to do something, look,
You do it.
it's not a public park, and you don't have a right because of your taxpayer dollars. If you don't agree with the rules, it's the same as going to a restaurant. If you don't want to do what the restaurant asks of you, if you can't satisfy the requirements for attendance that Disney or Universal or SeaWorld or Legoland or
Getting on an airplane.
and yes, anything.
Yep.
You have to be willing to play by those rules. You can't get in and then go, well, I'm not going to do it. I
Correct.
didn't know about it. And I think that becomes the biggest problem. It feels almost like, because we're both dads, and any parent out there will agree. It's like, asking your kid repeatedly not to do something, and then you turn your back and turn back around, and what the hell are they doing? They're doing the exact thing you asked them not to do.
Yep.
And unfortunately, cast members are faced with that. And the thing that kind of breaks my heart is, um, I know several cast members, many of whom are former reports who are going back or going into different lines of business, but also peers that I used to work alongside. And one said something to me that really broke my heart. We're talking about the things that have to be done, and what it's like now in this new climate. And he said, I'm glad to be back, but I I can't ruffle any feathers. I have to keep my head down and do my job, because if I don't, they'll bring someone in who does, and I'm gone. And I thought, man, it took the wind out of my sails to hear it come from this particular individual, because he's a leader I respect, and I was kind of shocked to hear that. And I hope that's not the case across the Orlando resort or
Hmm.
globally for all the Disney properties, but I think it also speaks to both the pressure and the shift from being being a specialist to being a generalist. And in this particular case, being a generalist simply means just you know just get out there and keep the water warm. It doesn't actually have to be hot. The coffee doesn't actually have to taste delicious.
Right.
Just at least make an effort. But it
Right.
doesn't even have to be a big effort.
Well, that's one of the things that I think has shocked me in the climate of society in general since all this has happened, is that people now are just like, oh, okay, as long as you show up for work, that's fine. Like, we just need a body. Like, there people are so short staffed that their their requirements and expectations have lowered to the point
Yep.
where I see teachers, and I know you are well aware of the education system, but I see teachers talking about it, how other teachers are just able to get away with so much right now because they need bodies in the buildings.
That's right.
And it is no different at Disney. It is no different at I've heard people getting told that they're getting extended on their shift while I'm standing there, and they're like, "Oh, well, I have an appointment." They're like, "No, you don't. You're staying till 7, or whatever." And it shocks me the way some of these people get told by a supervisor, that I was like, "Well, if you ran that by HR, you'd probably be okay to leave."
Yes.
You know what
Yes.
I mean?
Yes.
They
I
can't
would never.
force
I
you to do that.
as a leader, I never. If I asked someone to extend, if I asked them, it didn't matter what they were doing, especially if I'm doubling their shift. You know what I'm also doing? I'm buying them lunch. I'm giving them a 4 keys card. I am making sure that
Right.
they completely and totally understand how much I appreciate. And you're right. You're right. I would uh, stuff like that makes me crazy. Stuff
No,
like that makes
but
me
but
nuts.
you go to the reference of how do people stay positive in the place where you want to make the most magic possible. It really does, and we've berated the point on the show about saying, you know, you are as responsible to create your magic as you are to receive it.
Yep.
Like your mindset going into a place. And I read a quote today that was talking about, if you manifest depression, if you find another reason to get depressed about your day, you're going to find 5 more reasons to get depressed about your day, and you're going to be in an unbreakable funk. If you find a reason to think about positivity and focus on positivity, you're going to find a reason to get positive and move forward and get out of that funk. And
Yep.
sometimes those are hard things to break, and they can be hard things to break for a cast member or a team member or a guest.
Yep. I
And
think I think I shared with you the Yacht and Beach Club story, the cast member who, wasn't really feeling well, but said, okay, I'm going to go to work anyway. And on the way to work, got a flat tire. So there's a world of suck. gets the flat tire fixed, gets to work, and is grousing, doesn't want to walk on stage, so is walking through I-95, the corridor that guests aren't in. And every cast member that he is encountering is saying, "Hey, good morning. Hey, great to see you." And by the time he gets to the other side, he's got a smile on his face because all of these people engaged him and just simply said, "Good morning," acknowledged him, and kind of allowed him to hit a mental reset button. And I think people forget how easy it is to do that. You know, it can start with meditation. If you're in the middle of your day and someone slings monkey poop at you, then you take a breath, take a step back, wash your face, do whatever you need to, but you take a few minutes to recompose yourself, and then you dive right back in. I'll never forget, and this is where I learned this, the saying of, "Hey, I don't know what scene they exited from when they entered into mine." And I heard this. I was at a Rosen Hotel, and the person in front of me at the front desk, man, was just laying into the girl behind the counter. She was tremendously professional. I was blown away by how she handled it. And the guy walks away and he's grousing and he's dropping F-bombs like, I don't know, it's a drinking game. He disappears. I go up and she just looks at me, and I'm the only person in the world that matters to her. And she's like, "Hi, how can I help you?" And I was shocked. I went, "How did you do that?" And she went, I don't know what he came from. I don't know whatever scene he was in before he came through the door into my world, but I hope he's a little better moving on to whatever he's doing now. And I thought, man, that's whatever she did mentally to prepare herself in those first few seconds. And I've seen cast members and team members. Yeah, I've seen people everywhere who have that amazing ability to literally, when they step neck deep into buffalo crap, they just clean themselves off and they go, "Come on, what are we gonna do now?"
It's funny you say that, because there was a Disney blogger who, I've chatted with a few times, and I wouldn't go so far to say as we're friends, but I know him online. Very nice guy. But he made a post today that I thought was very interesting, and one I really agreed with. He put a post up that said, today one of my customers told me he appreciated me. And this gentleman had been a teacher for 6 or 7 years, maybe even longer, maybe 9 years. I can't remember the exact number. But he said, in all my years of teaching, no one ever told me they appreciated me. And, when you think about that, like, your role as a teacher, you definitely should be appreciated because you're trying to educate someone and make their life better and make them more knowledgeable. And
that's why these things are so important.
Well, that's
these are just a few of my collection from you guys. But this currency, because I've told you, and I know other cast members have told you as well, they've rushed you because they wanted to get one, or they said, "Oh my gosh, so you're Brian and Tegan. Your card is in our green room, or it's in our break space, or it's in the tunnel where we walk out before we get to that."
We actually
own gravity
at Animal Kingdom 2 weeks ago when we were there. One of the cast members pulled his phone out of his pocket and said, "I got to show you something." And I said, "What?" And he's like, "I got to show you something. I keep a picture of it on my phone." And he pulled it up. He found it in 3 seconds. Takes me 5 minutes to find a picture on my phone. 3 seconds, boom, he had it. Pulled the picture up, and it was the picture of all our cards on a bulletin board in the green room. And there was like 1 or 2 other cards up there that people had given. He said, "Yep. You guys are our favorite." And I was like, "Favorite what?" And he's like, "No, you're our favorite guests. When you guys come through, everybody's day gets brighter." And we don't ever think of it as making that kind of difference. We just we do want to make someone's day brighter, but
right.
You don't really think, you're making a difference. You're just saying thank you. But some of the messages we get and some of the stories we've been told and some of the things, like, I don't think I could ever go to Disney now or Universal and not bring cards. And you know, and it's not because of anything other than knowing we're making a difference for someone else, that, you know, their job really is. I know people leave Disney and Universal and they're like, oh, we had the best vacation and no, it was a dream. And some leave and complain. They're just the people in the world that don't know how to enjoy themselves and have fun.
Right.
But you know, there's so many people that leave that place. And the reason there's so many people so impassioned to come back over and over and over again is because it is magic. And it does allow a family to immerse themselves and get lost into an experience of enjoying each other and being around your family unit and making memories. And when that starts to happen, there are so many people in roles that are so important. I'll give you an example. The biggest complaint I've seen over the last 6 months online is that trash cans are overflowing in the parks. Parks are dirty. Never seen them this dirty. Never seen this much trash on the ground. Walt would be rolling over in his grave. As you said, Walt was cremated. You can sprinkle pixie dust on him. He ain't rolling over in anything. But the reality is they're short-staffed. But what's that? Yeah. What's that make you realize in years past? What's one of the most important people that walks through that park? Your janitorial crew. Because they're keeping trash cans empty. They're keeping bathrooms clean. They're doing all the things.
And you know,
you're too lazy to take care of yourself and you're dropping trash on the ground.
Right.
And these people are making the magic. And those are the people.
Just so you know, in traditions, that's the thing that we would teach. Whose job is it to pick up trash? It's a trick question.
Everyone's.
Custodial is everybody's job. And yeah, to that point, you know, people who talk about the Tokyo Disneyland Park as being gorgeously clean, obscenely so, but it's because the guests there culturally respect the space enough to hang on to the trash until they get to a trash can.
Yep. And it's crazy, but those are the people Tegan and I enjoy thanking the most. And you know, the janitorial crew, the people that don't get the glory based on their position, that don't get thanked enough. If you catch someone at Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and you're like, oh my God, we wanted to ride this ride and our flight leaves in an hour and this is the last thing. I don't have 90 minutes to wait. And a cast member says, hey, you know what? Your lucky day. Why don't you go through the fast pass line and go ahead and ride the ride? I want you to have some magic. And people may say, oh, thank you so much. That's so nice of you. And they show some appreciation. The guy that just scrubbed the toilet you're about to use, you're not going to walk up and be like, oh my God, buddy, what a great job. Thank you so much for doing what you do. They don't get thanked enough. They don't get those same opportunities. I mean, the magic he's going to create, he might hand you a roll of toilet paper when there's none in the stall, and he may be your hero for the day, but the likelihood is you're not going to show appreciation to those cast members the same way that you are the people you're interacting with.
That's right.
Or in the line.
That's not the guy you want to get cheeky with.
Yeah, that's very true. But those are the things people don't realize. And like, that's one of the things I try to tell my friends when, we had the opportunity to travel this past trip with two families that have never been to Disney before. And it was refreshing to me because one of them literally had the time of their lives. Like, she was raving up and down. The kids were raving up and down. She was just ecstatic, overwhelmed, and just in heaven. And I was thinking to myself, wow, so much is missing, Good night, Frank. Thank you for joining us, buddy. No problem.
Good night, Frank. Sweet dreams.
But that was one of the things that I was just overwhelmed with, the reminder that other people's perception of things is not always your perception.
Right.
So while I may recognize there is so much currently missing from Disney that I was accustomed to over the past few years in our visits, that we could make the argument, ooh, they've taken a lot away and the prices are outrageous. And, what you talked about earlier, like you could make those arguments and they're valid points. However, to see someone else go in and be like, that was worth every cent.
Yeah, especially someone who doesn't know any better, because they don't have a benchmark. They're
Correct.
tabula rasa. They're starting with a completely blank slate, and that's for you, that industrial knowledge you have of the park and resort operation. I mean, that's a bookcase filled with books. Whereas this family you're talking about, they've
Yeah.
got the bookcase and they have just started to put books on it. So they are
Yep.
getting a completely different perspective.
And it was refreshing because it was really nice to share. We shared a couple hours one afternoon. I met up with them and we did a few rides in Epcot together. We went on the Frozen Ever After ride. And we did Test Track. And it was really cool to experience things for the first time with someone and, to see that fresh view again. And I think, there's things coming. Ratatouille opens on October 1st. Space.
Yeah,
220.
officially, they've been doing
They've been doing previews.
protracted soft open. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not soft opening or anything though. It's been previews.
Right.
So not anyone can ride. We tried.
Right.
They're very strict. They were a little cold-hearted. They gave us the Ratatouille, like they were like.
I trust me. I was a cast member when they were doing the preview for Mission Space, and I remember watching so many people who were trying to get sorry.
Yeah. But we did have the opportunity to look at some of the things coming up, and I've been following them online. Ratatouille opening, a lot of people are very excited for that, for the new ride. Space 220 opens this.
Yeah, the restaurant.
Week. Yep. Tegan was really big on that. Did you have a chance to look over the menu and the cost on that?
No, I didn't. I saw that they're hiring people, and there are hiring bonuses. If you know your way around the kitchen, folks that are watching, all two of you, they're hiring, and I think it's a $1,000 bonus.
Yep. And there's referral bonuses for cast members too, by the way.
Sure.
For that position.
I haven't looked at the menu, but now I'm going to have to. I'm pretty excited.
So, you ready?
Yeah.
Two entree, two course prefixed menu for lunch, $55. 3 course prefix menu for dinner for $79 a person. It has
like
outpriced Be Our Guest. I personally think that has to do with the cost of shipping food to space.
Yeah. I honestly, I think the lunch price is kind of in line with character dining prices. It's only a few dollars more, but
character dining's $42.
Is that
for the buffet?
Okay,
sorry, for the buffets.
Right. Yep.
The buffets are $42. For lunch, that hits me as high. You're talking over $2 for a family of 4 for a lunch. That's a little steep. When you're talking $320 for a family of 4 for dinner, that's a lot. Given the menu is, from what I saw. So here's the thing with Disney that always hits me. Disney tries to get kind of exotic with their food, but if you're going with a family of 4, mom and dad might be game to be exotic, but I as a father don't want to pay $67 or $79 for my kid to have mac and cheese.
Real quickly though, Space 220 is not a Disney restaurant. It's an operating participant restaurant. So
Correct.
that's a little different. I mean, I will I will shower all the praise in the world for days and weeks and months on the Disney chefs and the different restaurants, around property in the parks and resorts and what they offer. Um, but I haven't seen their menus, so I don't know.
Well,
But
I no
you're
no no. I'll shower praise, Ron. But what I'm saying is, so for example, youth Disney's not great with lowering prices or helping out if kids are just going to eat six chicken tenders and a mac and
right,
cheese.
and some French fries. Yep,
So they're still going to charge you $67 if that's the menu.
yep,
So like when we went to be our guest, Tegan's paying $67 to get mac and cheese.
yep.
So yes, the character experience makes it worth it. Is Space 220's elevator ride gonna make it worth it? And the encapsulation in space for your meal, does it make it worth it? I can see that being something that is like a Cinderella's Royal Table that you do once to experience it, you spend the money, but does that become the repeat signature restaurant for people or the place that people want to go over and over? And that is kind of my question as to where that goes, because that price point's a little high. And I know they're trying to sell it as upscale dining. I'm anxious
Right.
to see if it really is.
Oh, I
And
get it. Upscale. I get it. Oh,
yeah, they launched the menu today.
oh, look at that.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I can. So really, from here, the prices can only go sky high.
That is true. That is true. We could do this all day.
Yes.
When you
So
get the
there
bill,
needs
you
to
may
be
see stars. I mean, it is possible, but the
Oh,
the prices are definitely out of this world. I'm just saying,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's been interesting to see. I think
So
one thing that's been
now I have to know. Now I'm looking. So
I,
you're going to see my facial reaction when I look at the menu.
there's some cool stuff on it. It looked interesting to me. A couple of the cocktails in the lounge looked good. I mean, I'm not a drinker personally, so I wouldn't be.
But that you brought up a great point. I think we've talked about this before. How could the Imagineers not have seen Oga's being as popular as it would be to make it bigger? I feel, especially when you think about things like revenue generation, man, that space could be double the size and there would still be a line outside.
Okay, so here's my thing on Ogas. If they were going to do that, they should have built mirror images of the same bar and had a central entrance that you either go left or right.
Yeah,
Because part of the joy of that bar is the intimacy of it.
yep,
And that
yep,
is something I will say that I wish Beaches and Cream would have done with the expansion. I wish they would have just mirrored the soda shop feel rather than try
right,
to expand the
right.
space, because part of the experience in there was in fact the intimacy of the place. And I think that's
And
something.
they could have done it very easily. That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Flight of Passage is 4 theaters, right? Isn't it 4? I think there's four
I
theaters.
believe it is. I believe it
Okay.
is. Yep.
So at any given time, there's 290, what is it? 288 people, because I think it can take 96 people per theater. So at any given time, there's 288 people going through the 13-minute experience, because there's the initial pre-show, the next pre-show, and then the ride. But they made 4 theaters. CCC. I'm telling you, it's kind of like,
You know, it's some there's a couple of items that you go, ooh, that sounds like that's going to be fun, and then there's stuff that I can get that at Chick-fil-A. Why is it on this menu?
But then there's also stuff that you go, so I'm paying $79 for my 12-year-old to try to ask if you can make chicken nuggets. That's my problem with Disney restaurants. That's my problem because they are making big bank anyway. If they said, hey, we'll cut the prefix meal, like if you want to order a kid's meal as an adult or for your child or whatever, we'll cut the prefix menu price in half. Or, listen,
Yep.
even with price increases, if you're making me 6 chicken nuggets and giving me fries, you're making dough on $38.
Yep.
You're making your money. Like to charge 80, that's why people wind up going to Village House and everything else. But when I'm on vacation, I like to do the sit downs. But you wind up wasting money when you have kids. And
you make a great point though about, is this a restaurant people are going to continuously frequent, or is it a one and done? Because there are at Epcot, there are places like, the Morocco Pavilion restaurant before the pandemic, the Beer Garden, another one. I was a frequent flyer there as when I was a leader in that park. I'd have friends come in to town,
Yep.
and the I'd like, I'll meet you after my work day is done, because I never got tired of going in, watching the entertainment and eating the food, or just hanging out with the company. So I am kind of curious about that. What the price point and the experience itself is going to do to bring people back.
Well, like for us, Cinderella's Royal Table was a one and done. We went in, we did a breakfast. But I spent $235 for 3 people to have breakfast. And I was thinking to myself, that was the more expensive than my hotel room on a Saturday night. It was more expensive for me to have like not good eggs and
Yep.
a mediocre breakfast. Yeah, I got steak tips, but it was a mediocre breakfast. The one thing I will say, it was the best cup of coffee I've ever had on Disney property. And it's the only place that they get fresh ground beans, apparently, and they get their own coffee specifically for Cinderella's Royal Table. And it was,
but is it worth $80 a person?
I don't know. That day it was damn good coffee, I'm going to tell you. Like, I mean,
now I know the next time I buy you coffee, like,
but
right.
it was one of those things where we were like, it was good. It was neat to see the princesses, but right now, and I don't even know what they're charging right now, but there's no princesses.
Yeah. And I don't even know how they're managing that space, any of those spaces, because pre-pandemic, the tables were all set up for maximum capacity, and now there's no edicts as far as 50% capacity. So maybe they're back to that, but
some places, I know some places are still doing like capacity restrictions,
right.
And they're only booking so many tables in the reservation system.
Right. Well, but there's also another reason points to what we've been talking about this entire hour, which is how impossible it is for them to be fully staffed in any one location.
Yep.
It's the reality. We were talking about education, K through 12 in Florida. They are short staffed with educators to the tune of roughly around the mid 5-figure range for the entire state. That's that many positions.
Was it Florida that had the National Guard driving buses the other day because of the?
No, that's up north. I don't think it's you. I don't think it's your state, but it's somewhere in the area. And they're paying.
Maybe it was New York.
They're paying parents. I don't know if it's New York, but they're paying parents who agree to drive their kids to school $250 a month to do it. And the big problem there is not that the school bus drivers are sitting home like fat cats collecting paychecks. They went to work for Amazon and FedEx and UPS, and they took
jobs that are getting better money.
They're getting better benefits.
here's the big issue that like that's going on everywhere. And I mean, all these people that make the arguments that, there's jobs, there's 10 million jobs out there. But all the people that were working in lower income jobs, here's a couple things I'll tell you. Servers aren't getting tipped the way they used to.
Nope.
Bartenders are not making the money they used to because they can't give the quality of service, because instead of having 4 tables, now they have 8. Now they have 10.
Yep.
So they're actually suffering in a sense, even though they do in fact make more money. Other people don't want to go to work there because then it becomes less and they're not going to make the money they were making. People are flat out rude and entitled now, more
Right.
so than I've ever seen
But
in my life.
the other thing that's happening, and I know we've hit on this before, is that gig economy that was spawned by the pandemic. You got people that were chefs at Disney have started their own businesses,
Yep.
and they're booking. Chef Caleb, great example. He's booking 4 weeks out. This guy posted. He's like, "Hey, I'm looking to hire someone who can figure their way out in the kitchen. You don't have to be a chef because you're going to learn from the best, and I'll pay you $20 an hour to start." That's ridiculous. But I know so many people who got calls to go back to Universal or Disney, but in their time off, they created something. They had an idea. They had a dream for a thing they wanted to do, and it took off. And they're like, "I would like to, but I've gotten used to spending time with my family and playing with my kid and going to Saturday morning softball games, So
Yeah.
I don't begrudge people that. It is, I totally get it. It's a reason why I was pretty careful and intentional in choosing the role that I have now, because I have enormous freedom with my time, and I get to do things with my kid, and I got to drive up and see you. If I had a
Yep.
job where I had to punch a clock, I wouldn't have been able to do it, or I would have had to have a cough for the day, so I couldn't go into work. But
Yep.
I get it.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, one of the biggest things that this entire country has also kind of lost vision of, and this is something I bring to cast members and team members too. I've never stood in your shoes, ever. And when people constantly snap judgment, they don't know. And I mean, I understand people are going to make judgment. They're going to pass their thoughts or share their opinions, and I'm fine with that. I'm one of those people. I really don't care what you think of me, because I firmly believe what other people think of me is none of my business. It's not my concern, because once I start to concern myself with it, I consume myself, and that's not mentally healthy. So
No.
the best thing you can do is other people's opinion of me, it doesn't matter. I want to be the best version of myself every day, and I want to like who I see in the reflection in the mirror and try to make a positive impact on the world and leave it a little better than I found it. That's how we try to live our lives. Can we always do that?
It's a great way to live your life. And I tell you, it's a wonderful thing that you say, I've never been in your shoes, because the thing that I always like to share with people, when we're talking about Disney or Universal, when we're talking about food and beverage, people typically do not go into the hospitality industry because they're going, "Can I make some money?" They're going into that business because there's something that compels them. They're going because of the brand. They're going to work at a Disney or a Universal or a SeaWorld because there's something about it that connects, that resonates. They're going to work at a restaurant because, man, they had amazing experiences and memories that will last a lifetime of going out to similar restaurants with their family growing up. And that's why people do it. And that's why it absolutely chafes my ass. Can I say that?
You just did.
Too late. We'll edit it in post.
We don't have a 7-second delay.
Dang it. It chafes my butt when what's that?
Beep.
It chafes my butt when people, like you pointed out earlier, are rude and crass and inconsiderate. It's like, think about what this person is doing. Think about the fact right now they're here taking care of you and your family instead of being able to be home taking care of their own family. They're working a double to take care of their family. They're taking care of you. Show a little respect, a little decorum. And I think that goes right back to the thing that we're always talking about. Just, show up and bring a little positivity,
You
no
have
matter
to.
what you're doing.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it's tough. Listen, the bulk of people, and it took me years to get comfortable enough to say, I don't care what anyone else thinks of me, because
Right.
people do, especially youth. When you're younger, you want to be liked, you want to have friends, you want all that. And what you start to learn is, when you really find that, is when you truly do embrace who you are, because
Yep.
people see the real you and they
Yeah.
know it's genuine. And once they know you're genuine, people are willing to open up and be closer to you. And I've made some of the best. I mean, you're like family to us now. And, Rusty and his wife, and we met through theme parks. We met through
Yep.
unique circumstances. And it's really comforting to me that you find your best friends and most important people in your life sometimes in the most unexpected places. And that's why I just never pass judgment. You never know why someone's going to come into your life. You never know what the purpose is. And trying to force it or figure it out causes problems. When you just kind of relax, be yourself, and let the
Just
road
go-
show you,
Go with the flow, as Crush would say.
Yeah,
Go with the flow.
exactly. And you don't pass judgment. I mean, again, the biggest thing for me is, I'll share my opinions and stuff, but I'll be the first to say, hey, listen, this is my thoughts on the circumstance, but I don't stand in your shoes. So that doesn't mean that this works for
Right.
you. And it
Right.
doesn't mean that this will even make sense to you, but it does to me. And and I can be okay having a differing opinion of somebody else. What amazes me on social media now is how quickly people say, you're wrong. Blah, 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 blah. Then they come at you and they attack. And when you're sharing an opinion, I see people in these Disney groups, they post an opinion like, oh, we didn't have a good meal at Be Our Guest. Be Our Guest is the best restaurant at Disney. They go crazy. And, and we love Be Our Guest. I can't stand Liberty Tree. I had a bad experience at Liberty Tree. I can't stand it. I won't go back. But because I have a bad memory there, and I just don't want to relive it, and I don't really want to give it another chance. And there's plenty other places I can go.
Brian, social media has allowed people to not be accountable, to shoot first, and then run for the exits without giving anybody an opportunity to respond. And that's why people, I think that's why people do that. Whether they're trolls and they trounce on individuals who share opinions or something else. My thing has always been, when someone says they had a bad time somewhere, my question is always, did you speak to a manager? Did you ask for a leader? It is always, right. Well, I didn't want to. You didn't want to what? What you're saying is you're okay letting other people get the same crappy experience because you missed out on an opportunity not to cause trouble, but to let this manager, to let this leader know, hey, there's a thing going on you may or may not be aware of. So here's something that happened to me. When I was in Knoxville, I got locked in this forgotten hallway with a set of stairs, old, musty, a single light, because I was looking for the pool, which was on the 3rd floor, and I asked housekeeping. I was like, the access to the pool is on the ballroom level, right? And she goes, yep. And I went, okay, great. So I get to the ballroom level. I'm looking around. I don't see anything. I don't see a sign that says pool. I see a hallway with a long, tall door. Door's not marked, but I'm in my mind figuring out this is where the pool would be. I go through the door. I go up the stairs. I get to this other door that says parking garage. It's been bolted shut from the outside. The door behind me slams shut, and I can't open it up. Thankfully, I had my phone. I called the front desk. The front desk said, are you sure you're in the right hotel? And I said, this is a Hilton Inn, right? Yes. It's on Church Street, right? Yes. This is the one. I said, I promise you, I am hidden in a corridor that you don't know exists. Anyway, 20 minutes later, finally, one of the guys at the front desk was smart enough to call me back, and he's talking to me as he makes his way. And I said, look, I'm going to rattle the door handle every few seconds, and we're going to keep talking. And I heard him in the hallway, and he saw the door handle rattling, came. He went, wow, this is weird. I never knew this was here. So here's my point. I followed up with the general manager because he reached out. He said, hey, I heard there was a problem. It's like, this isn't a problem. I said, if you've got a kid or if you have someone with anxiety issues or someone who's claustrophobic who doesn't have a cell phone, get stuck in there, and you don't have a convention going on, you're in a heap of trouble. I said, I want to know because this is the safety champion in me from my previous role. I want to know that things are going to be done to address this. That door has to be able to open. There's got to be better marking on the door. Your elevator doesn't tell anybody where the swimming pool is. These things have to be taken care of
I'm
because
sorry to laugh. I just see you in an escape room. I'm like, he goes to
it was I am not kidding. It was literally the hallway was 3 feet wide. It had 7 carpeted steps that led up to and the carpet was moldy. There were spider webs everywhere. Dude, nobody had been in this corridor, this short corridor, in years. And that truth was borne out when this employee came up and he goes, man, I never even knew this was here. But I refused to let it go until I had the assurance from the GM, and he followed back up. He goes, hey, sorry I was out of pocket, but this is what we're doing. And he didn't have to tell me what he was doing,
right.
but he line by line went through all the issues to make sure it would never happen to anyone else. And that's always my point. When somebody says, oh, I didn't like soap, it's like, did you talk to a manager?
Correct. But I'll counter that with a different viewpoint. Because there are times when at Disney, for example, I'm paying $200 a day per person just to be in the park. I don't want to have a 20-minute extra debate with a manager about the food. I might bring it up.
Wait a minute. Why do you care about investing 15 to 20 minutes if you're going to wait on a line to ride a ride that lasts 7 minutes for an hour?
No, but I'm just saying, like, my point is the complaint may not be worth my time. And I'm gonna evaluate if it's worth my time or not. Like, to go to guest services to speak about something, I'm gonna make an equation in my head whether it's more important for me to go enjoy my day or to bring this issue to somebody's attention. And I'm gonna take it at a certain level, because I'll give you an example. One of the friends I was with at Disney this last trip was back in the room and got a room inspection and decided to explain to the room inspection guy that the sink wasn't draining at the proper speed and water was a little slow to back up.
Okay.
They went and got a plumber. First they got maintenance. Maintenance couldn't fix it. Then they got a plumber. She winds up being in the room for like 3.5 hours or whatever. Finally has to leave the room because the smell of bleach is so strong that she can't even breathe. And I'm like, why did you even say anything? Like, That's one of those issues that I'm like, when you're checking out, be like, hey, just so you know, the sink drains a little slow, because you probably could have lived the 4 days with it. I was just surprised. So there's certain issues sometimes that you can almost nitpick your way into a worse situation.
Well, but to your point, that has happened to me, because I've traveled extensively. I was a road warrior
we both
in 2019.
Yeah.
And I mean, I spent months in hotel rooms, and that was always, I feel a vested sense of ownership if I have brand loyalty, and I have done it more than once. I'll go to the front desk. I won't call them. I'll go to the front desk. Hey, by the way, just so you know, X, Y, and Z. I'm fine with it. We don't have to move me to another room. just
Make a
tag my
note
room,
for the future.
tag my room so that when I check out, you can get it addressed.
Yep.
And I understand what you're saying about weighing. If you're at a restaurant in Disney and the fries aren't as hot as you like them, okay, whatever. It's a personal preference thing. It's like coffee or anything else. But if there are serious service stumbles or there are other things going on, then you, your manager there may not have the first clue. It's almost like an entertainment manager at Epcot, right? World Showcase is in charge of that entire damn area. They
Yep.
have no idea because they can't be in all those places.
Correct.
It's the same for any of those parks, and that's why I always encourage people. I implore people, take your concern locally first before you go to guest relations, because when you go to guest relations, it gets documented and logged, and it takes this weird circuitous thing where it
And it doesn't always even get back to where it needs to go.
No, it doesn't. And sometimes
Correct.
what happens is it gets back to where it needed to go, but it arrives with a hand slap and nothing actually gets fixed.
Yeah, it's
really
funny, and I agree with the point made that as a manager in the food industry, there's no way to fix something without being told about it. Like,
Right.
And I agree with that sentiment. I guess my point is, like, if I'm at Disney, and one of the things that annoys me about Disney is I make a food reservation for 1:00. It is not uncommon that you wait 30 to 45 minutes, maybe even an hour before you get seated for your 1:00 reservation, and you show up at 12:30 for that 1:00. So now you're not even getting seated at your table till almost 2. You've already lost 90 minutes of your park day. Now, if you get seated at 2 and you don't get out of there till 3, you're at 2.5 hours. If my food sucked, I'm like, too bad. I want Space Mountain now. I'm good. Like, this was just a bad one. And I might email afterwards, but I'm not taking time out then.
Nope. I want them to be accountable. If my food sucked, they've got to fix it right then. I don't care what it is. Get me fast passes, take the price of one of the meals off, give me a voucher for something else later. I don't care, but fix it. Because it's a contract. When you go into a restaurant, it's a pretty simple contract.
No, I understand. And listen, you're paying for it. That's the first thing I tell people. And I tell my travel clients this and everything else. You are paying for a service. If you are not happy, bring it up. I'm just one of those people that also understands it's not always going to go my way. And I try to figure out if the juice is worth the squeeze. Is it worth me bringing it up and going through it?
I understand.
Or is it one of those things I'm willing to just chalk it up to server had a crappy day, kitchen wasn't running on time, cook forgot about my steak for an extra 10 minutes and I got medium well instead of medium rare, whatever it is. If it's not a huge deal, I'm not going to jump on fixing it. I'll suffer through it and I'll just make a note out of it.
I love that you brought on the medium well instead of medium rare, because that has been for me a thing in the past. But I always make it a point, if a server or a manager table touches, because if they're even halfway good at what they do, they're going to stop by and go, "Hey, how's everything?"
Yep.
And I'll say, "You know what? Everything looks beautiful. It tastes great. I just want to point out, I know some restaurants are different, but is this medium rare at this restaurant?" And I'll slice it open and show them.
True story. The worst food dining experience I've ever had. And I still bash this place regularly because I swore to the owner, the manager then, that by his reaction, I would badmouth his restaurant at every opportunity. So it is a place called Oi's in Reading, Massachusetts. And they have 5-star reviews.
What's the name? What's the name of the place?
Oi's. It's Oyes. Okay. Now it's in Reading, Massachusetts, and they have 5-star reviews on Yelp. They are that's why we went. Everybody loves Oi's. I ordered like a General Gao's chicken. So like the spicy, honey and, spice sauce chicken,
right?
White rice. I get it. It's very crunchy. So I asked the manager when he came over, I had literally taken one bite of the food. We had just got our food. I asked the manager, I said, is this how you prepare your General Gao's chicken? Because if this is how you always make it, I wouldn't order it next time, but I'll eat it this time. I'm just curious if this is how you normally make it, or the guy forgot about it in the fryer and it got real hard. Because I mean, it was like uncomfortable crunchy. And he literally took his fingers, reached into my plate, grabbed hand to God, reached into my plate, grabbed a piece of the chicken, put it in his mouth and ate it, and goes, yep, that's how we do it, and walked away like I was going to finish my food. And I said to him, I said, excuse me, sir, can you come back here? Now, this is obviously way pre-COVID, because if it COVID, I would have had a lawsuit. But he came back, and I was like, sir, I'm not going to eat that. And he goes, I just told you that's how it's prepared. I said, you just stuck your fingers in my food.
Yep.
He goes, so you don't want it? I said, no, I don't. I said, I'd like you to take it back. He goes, do you want something else instead? I said, no, I'm appalled. I'm like, we're all set. And he goes, all right, I'll bring the bill. He brought the bill up. Now, the girl I was with had one bite of her food. I took one bite of mine. We had each taken 1 sip, 2 sips of our drinks, had a little water, and he brought the full bill. And I said, you're not going to take my entree off the bill? And he goes, no. And I said, okay, just to be clear, you stuck your fingers in my food, and I'm telling you, I don't want to eat here now because I'm repulsed, and you're not taking it off. I said, I will gladly pay the bill, but I will forever badmouth your restaurant. I said, forever. As long as anyone asks me about this place, I am badmouthing it to high end. And he goes, I don't care. You can do whatever the hell you want. And I was like, to me, that attitude, I was stupefied. I've never had service like that in my entire life. And I worked in restaurants for 25 years.
I would have refused to pay the bill.
Never
I would have refused.
No, I don't even care, because like it was the principle at that point. It wasn't that we couldn't afford it. Obviously, we went out to eat.
No. It's the principle.
But I was like, no
finger in your food.
Yeah, I was absolutely disgusted. I get more contentment telling the story because it's so unbelievable. It's crazy. I get more joy out of being able to tell. It was worth the $50 just to tell the story. But I was shocked. It was literally the most disgusting thing I've ever had happen in a restaurant.
Here's a question. How many people have you told who have asked about wanting to go to that restaurant, not to go to that restaurant?
1,000.
I love it.
I mean, I told the story over a microphone. Someone brought up the restaurant at a trivia night I was hosting. There's probably 250 people in the bar. Told the story right over the microphone. I don't even care. Like that stuff. There's a level of professionalism you always have to have. And listen, I'm sarcastic. There's people that don't like how I am sometimes. I get it. But I'm very comfortable with who I am. I'm very comfortable embracing that.
Right.
And I like and admire people that are the same. Even if you say something that's a little contradictive, or, if you may have an opinion differing than mine, that's part of the beauty of people that have the ability to be open and honest. And those are people I just respect. And like when you don't hide your feelings or your emotion or your frustration or anything else, and you're just pure, it's a great thing. And I think the world could use some more pure people that don't manipulate, just put it out there.
Yeah.
Are very heartfelt with their reactions and very real. We just need more real people that are also capable of showing some compassion and respect. But that manager didn't need any compassion. He was flat out wrong.
That's awesome. So you heard it here first. If you are hearing it first, always don't eat there.
Yeah, don't go to Oys.
I understand they don't wash their hands before they prepare the food.
I don't know about that. He could have. I mean, he may wash his hands every time he reaches into someone's plate. I can't imagine that manager is still working in the business, because I'll be honest with you, his attitude with me was so abruptly rude, and even the girl I was with was like in shock. I can't imagine we're the only people that he has ever spoken to like that.
Here, I might have shared this story with you. I know I've shared it with others before. When I started my Disney journey, I was in attraction operations, and we would bump through our rotation, and we would touch the handrails that guests would touch as they're walking up to go to the water tank before heading over to the shuttles. And then we touch the microphone, and then we'd touch a door handle and walk backstage. I got into a habit every time I bumped after walking through that door backstage to my break of washing my hands. And I am not kidding. It looked like I'd been gardening. It was dirty water coming off of my hands from just touching these things that other people touch. So that guy, who knows where that filthy digit was besides your food.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I mean, listen,
what's weird is it might still taste like chicken.
I would hope so. It is chicken. If it tasted like something else, that would have been even more concerning. That's a whole nother complaint with a whole nother department.
That's right. Next week on Dad's Talk Theme Parks.
Yeah, we'll talk actual theme parks.
We kind of talked theme parks tonight.
No, we did. We'll wrap up tonight. Obviously, it was a lengthy journey with like one viewer for like 30 minutes, and which is awesome. We're the most popular show on our own computer screens. And
we are for this time slot and this drive time in an alternate universe. We are number one, folks.
Yep. That's on that planet with two people in it, and we're both on the podcast. And Rusty's probably driving home right now, and he's not even watching. So that's it. I tried to give him a little extended time. He said he might get home around 10 and was going to try to jump on, but so much for that. He is real, though. We proved it. I'm just saying. We proved it. He is right there, center stage. So he is real, and we
he's evil. He's evilly good looking too. The damn handsome bastard.
Yeah, he is. He is a pretty boy. He's a great guy, though. He is one of my favorite people, along with you. So like you guys are awesome. That's why we did this. So coming into the fall, this was kind of the first of our, fall season. We took a couple weeks off, and we're going to try to do this regularly on Tuesdays. We are going to try to structure episodes a little more in the future, and
they have been reasonably structured. I think tonight was it was okay. There was nothing wrong with what we did.
No, but it was a little bit of a fly by the seat of the pants. Next week, where we're coming into basically the week before the 50th, going to touch on some of the things going on at Disney. The 50 statues that are out, the gold statues are very impressive, really cool.
Yeah.
Some of the neat things that they are doing for the 50th, the availability again of annual passes,
right?
And the new cost structure.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I feel we can probably. I mean, next week's episode, we could probably unpack everything in preparation for the 50th. I feel all three viewers for next week would probably get a great deal out of it.
Well, we're also going to start actually trying to promote this. The one thing I'll be honest about, we haven't really pushed any promotion on this either, based on the fact we're trying to get Rusty in and kind of get the format rolling with Three Dads for a little bit. He is just he's like the unicorn on Hagrid's. You might see him, you might not. He's a rare find, but he does actively want to get involved. And, like before we really start pushing the advertising, we also wanted to make sure that we had decent flow and could ever get topics discussed and everything else. So
Right.
I think we're getting to that point. We're going to start trying to push, sharing it. I know I am on my media pages, and
Sure.
we'll try to get the word out a little bit that we're actually doing this, and try to structure some content a little more to benefit the 3 people that watch. One at a time for 10 minutes. But
20 minutes, so we can actually get a full hour out of it.
Yeah. I mean, we like we've said before, this is more for us being able to jib jab and talk a little bit and have some fun. But we do want to be able to bring it to another level.
It's true, but honestly, the reality is, we enjoy talking about things we're passionate about, and we just we converse well together. So,
and we'll do an episode at some point addressing the Velocicoaster, because
and then maybe Brevard Zoo, because why not?
Yeah, you like that zoo. You really like that place, you said.
I think it's one of those wonderful hidden gems.
Well, we will have to talk about that. Actually, that would be a great show sometime for some of the hidden gems that we've discovered over the course of our lives that are the little parks and treats and places you can go.
Lion Country Safari is another one. I mean,
you have a ton in Florida. It's like there's so many places to go. But there are some great zoos around. I know they're not necessarily in the theme park realm, but I personally love taking kids to zoos. I think it's an integral part of their learning experience with developing passions for animals and everything else. And I know a lot of people, I know a lot of people bash on places like SeaWorld and other places as such, but I think honestly, those are pretty integral to getting children to, be aware of how to make a difference with ocean life and everything else, and being able to get hands-on and face-to-face experience and memories with animals is what educates and emboldens kids to take activist roles. And I mean,
those are the people who become tomorrow's environmental scientist and marine biologist. I was having a conversation with someone a couple of days ago about the Living Seas, and they were like, I don't want to patronize Disney because I don't want to. Well, hang on. Living Seas is actually a NAUI training facility. And for those who don't know, NAUI, NAUI, is a form of scuba certification. Living Seas is a NAUI training facility. And if you've never been scuba diving in your life, you can book a dive experience there. And if you have never worn scuba gear, they do this beautiful thing where they actually put a regulator in your mouth. You get a pony tank with an inflated BC, and you're there on the surface breathing the air as you experience this. And it's such a brilliant way to open up the oceans and what life in the water is like. And I don't have enough wonderful things to say about what it does for marine conservation. So
Living Seas, Living Seas in the 80s, we went in 1986, and there was a woman who worked there named Dee Dee Rector, and I still have her letters because she is someone I wrote because I was doing a science project on marine biology, and I think I was in like 8th grade. I was at Tegan's age. I was exactly where my daughter is right now. And I wrote her a letter. She wrote back, and we continued to communicate for 3 or 4 years. And I was able to.
Did you ever try to find her? I wonder if she's on social media.
I don't know. I never really looked afterwards. It's been years and I kind of lost that passion. But I was very into marine biology, and we actually met her at Living Seas. And then she showed me around, gave me a little bit of a behind the scenes tour. And she actually put me in touch with someone at SeaWorld. and I got in touch with one of the head trainers, and I got to experience a day with the killer whales that I was behind the scenes and acted like to help do a show and all kinds of really cool stuff that was a lot more liberal with freedoms in the 80s than they are now, because there's a lot less liability concerns.
Right.
But I got some great opportunities just by communicating with cast members and people that were employed there. So, for the kids out there that do have those passions, grab the name of a cast member, send them a letter, say thank you. You'd be amazed. You can make some friends and you can learn some really cool information. So
yeah, and the Seas is one of those really educational facilities. But I understand. I understand the people's mindset about places like SeaWorld, and I want to focus on the fact that the folks that run those facilities also recognize, okay, trapping dolphins in the wild and doing what we did wasn't the best thing in the world, but we're focused on doing other things now. And I think sometimes people lose sight of that here in Florida, when animals get beached, or they find baby orphans, Miami Seaquarium, SeaWorld, Marineland, up the coast. I mean, there are a host of facilities that are designed to nurture these creatures back to health.
And they don't realize that a lot of the animals in these aquariums would be killed in the wild because they're disabled, injured, or would not have survived under natural circumstances. So, the animals that are often there are alive because of conservation programs.
So this is, I worked one of the first, I guess this was the first theme park I worked at. It was an oceanarium called Ocean World, which was in Fort Lauderdale, and they worked with the head vet from our facility. His name was Craig Bossert, and Nova University, to create a turtle tagging program, which is now still in use today and has been applied and copied in other parts of the world. And what they do is they have this program where they track turtle movement, turtle nests. They mark the nest. They make sure they're not disturbed, because there was a real issue. We were talking about the 80s, where there were unscrupulous chefs in restaurants that were paying top dollar for turtle eggs because they're so rich in yolk. That the rumors were that these chefs were paying $1, $2, $3 an egg for these eggs, and none of that happens now. So a lot of this would never have taken place if it weren't for the forward-looking vision of the people who came from these seaquariums. So they're not all bad. At Disney Animal Kingdom, anytime there's an animal that has been injured, it's taken over there so they can treat the animal and then decide whether or not there's a viability for it being released back into the wild.
Yeah, and I mean, people don't give that credit. The fact that you go back to the 70s, nobody wore seatbelts. Like you can look at it in the simplest of manners. People always drove. Kids used to ride in the back of pickups like it was going out of style. We learn from our recklessness, and we learn how to be better people and do better things. And we expand on that all the time. And right now we're going through the wave of having to learn it in social media. It's anti-social media. We have to learn to be nice to people again.
Yeah.
And, it's a sad aspect, but it's true. So, that being said, we will always try to be nice to you guys, and we're going to talk the 50th. This is the longest show we've ever done. We just hadn't talked in 2 weeks. So Ron and I were this was like a 3 cocktail evening, even though it was just a single cup of coffee.
Yeah. No drinking, just water. I mean, it almost feels like right before we went live, it's like, what are you wearing? Okay, I'm going to wear that. What are we going to, okay, that sounds good. Okay, let's go.
We're scrambling. I'm grumpy because you're dopey, and my favorite shirt to wear when I go to the nightclubs. But anyway, I hope everybody has a great night. Thank you to the two of you that hung out with us this evening. And we will see you next time. Next week, we are going to plan to attack the 50th, and we're going to address all the things we can look forward to and some of the changes and what our honest feelings are about some of the things that are changing at Disney. And it won't, for me, I'll be honest, it won't all be positive. But, you know, there's certain things I'm not a fan of. But hopefully Disney can prove me wrong and show me that I should have been thrilled that they made these decisions. But
or they might be like that manager and just stick their corporate finger into your food and say, sorry.
Yeah, they might reach in and grab my pass. So I said pass, people.
You said pass, folks. Pass. That's a different show. Another show.
But we didn't bleep it out earlier, so I could have said the real thing. But anyway, guys, on behalf of Ron and myself, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. But we are going to call it an evening. Hopefully.